Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. By now, most of you guys have seen these news stories. They've been all over the place. They're on NPR, New York Times, CBS, ABC, Fox News about the problems with the Tesla charging stations in the Chicago area. And several other articles and YouTube videos have talked about and explained a lot of the issues with the Tesla charging. Things like people not knowing how to precondition their car, lots of rideshare drivers who are not familiar with Teslas and EVs, using them and trying to charge them. Some of the charging stations were down, and then the slow charging made things back up, and people were waiting, and they were losing their capacity while they were waiting. Things like that. So there have been a lot of good explanations, but I wanted to talk about a couple of things that the other videos had not mentioned. But basically, these articles like this gave the impression that EVs do not work in cold environments. That's kind of the narrative that these articles seem to be pushing. And, I knew right away that that can't be true, because here is the top 20 countries for EV sales. And if you look at this, the electric vehicle sales as percentage of overall car sales, look at the countries that are the top adopters of EVs. Number one, Norway. 86 of all their cars sold in 2021 were EVs. Iceland, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Netherlands, Germany. Okay, so none of these countries are warm weather countries. In fact, these are countries that are extremely cold. One of the countries is literally called Iceland. So if 72% of the cars sold in Iceland are EVs, obviously these people aren't dumb. They know that their cars need to work in the winter in their countries. So EVs do work in cold climates. However, this is not completely wrong. EVs do have problems in cold weather. They work, they don't work very well, or they don't work as well as they usually do in cold temperatures. And that just has to do with the physics of lithium ion batteries. Okay, so I found this little page, and this is from Flux Power, which is, as many of you guys know, this is Chris Anthony's old company. He started this company. This is a company that sells lithium ion batteries, mainly for forklifts and other industrial applications. And they had a little article that they wrote about importance of industrial battery temperature control, and they talk about what happens to lithium ion batteries at low temperatures. In general, lithium ion batteries can be discharged in temperatures as low as -4 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, these there's places that are going to hit -4 degrees Fahrenheit, especially with wind chill and things like that, which doesn't wind chill is more like what people feel. But if you have wind moving over the battery pack, it's definitely going to be colder than the ambient temperature of the air. It's going to reduce, especially if there's some sublimation of water off of it, water vapor off of it. It's going to drop the temperature a little bit. Anyways, -4 degrees Fahrenheit is really low, but isn't completely unheard of, especially like up in places like Edmonton and things like that. And so they lose their energy density and capacity. So the batteries lose their effective capacity at low temperatures. And we all know this. EVs have less range in cold temperatures. One of the reasons is because the batteries effectively lose capacity in low temperatures. At very low temperatures, the ions move slower through the electrolytes, resulting in reduction of capacity. Additionally, low temperatures cause the charge transfer velocity to decrease, which makes it difficult to charge a battery. The lowest charging temperature of a lithium-ion battery is 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It's especially true for lithium iron phosphate batteries. You really can't charge them when the temperature is below freezing. And that is one of the major issues that we found in Chicago. A lot of the rideshare drivers were renting out the cheapest rear-wheel drive Model 3, and those use lithium iron phosphate batteries, which are even more cold sensitive than other lithium ion chemistries like NCO and NMC. Aptera is using NMC, which is nickel, manganese, cobalt, and that is a little bit better in cold temperatures. All right, let's review kind of how lithium ion batteries work. And so the lithium ion batteries, this is the cathode. The cathode is an alloy of lithium and whatever the chemistry. When they talk about chemistry, they're talking about cathode chemistry. So in an NMC battery, the cathode is going to have lithium, manganese, cobalt, and nickel in the cathode. The anode is usually graphite in almost all of these batteries. Sometimes they add a little bit of silicon in there. That just makes things work a little better. And then there's a solvent and a separator in here. And when at low temperatures, the lithium ions have a hard time diffusing out of this alloy they're in, this matrix that they're in, and they have a hard time solvating in the solvent. And then when they go on to, they have a hard time getting in there, in between the graphite, and sometimes they cause plates. They form a surface plating of pure lithium right on the anode, which can make you permanently lose capacity. And if they form dendrites and they pierce the separator, they can cause an internal short, and that just kills the battery. So that's why that's why they want you not to charge when it's below 30 degrees Fahrenheit or below freezing, because they don't want you to permanently damage your battery. Now, this whole process is essentially a chemical reaction. All batteries are chemical reaction. They're like basically a chemical reaction that's being forced backwards when you charge it. When you put electricity in it, it forces the reaction backwards, and then when you discharge it, you're driving the chemical reaction forward. And all chemical reactions go slower when the temperature is lower. This is another paper called Temperature Effects and Thermal Impact on Lithium-Ion Batteries, a review. If they look at this, the low temperature effects, so they talk about how this is a problem in cold temperatures. So like low temperature effects mostly take place in high latitude countries such as Russia, Canada, Greenland. In these areas, the outdoor temperature in winter are much lower than 0 degrees Celsius. Such low temperatures will affect the performance and life of lithium-ion batteries, especially for those used in pure electric batteries, hybrid electric batteries, and plug-in electric batteries. Other cold environments that involve the use of lithium-ion batteries is outer space. For example, the temperature on Mars can be as low as -120°C, which pose serious challenges to the use of lithium-ion batteries in astrovehicles for space exploration. So at these low operating temperatures, so again, this is what Flux Power was talking about, lithium-ion batteries will show slow chemical reaction activity and charge transfer velocity, which leads to the decrease of ionic conductivity in the electrolytes and lithium-ion diffusivity within the electrodes. So that's what we were talking about here before. It doesn't want to diffuse out of here. It doesn't want to dissolve in the solvent, and it has problems intercalating into the graphite. So what are the effects of low temperatures here? There was a paper in 2001 that showed that the power and energy densities of these 18650 lithium-ion batteries from Panasonic, they dropped by almost 100% when you drop their temperature to -40 degrees Celsius. Now, -40 degrees Celsius is quite cold. I believe that's like -30 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's really, really cold. And those are temperatures that are not normally reached in most places, most cities in the world, most places where people live. Maybe like Yakutsk in Siberia reaches those temperatures. But it's quite cold. But at those temperatures, lithium-ion batteries are essentially non-functional. They're not working. They lose 98 to 75%, 98 to 95% of their capacity and power delivery. When you drop temperatures to -15 degrees Celsius, these are temperatures that are fairly regularly reached in the colder parts of the world, in places where people live. They decrease capacity by as much as 23%. So a quarter, you lose a quarter of the capacity. And they talk about one of the major issues is the electrolyte, and you can change the electrolyte so they work better. So this is a little graph. This is the state of the art electrolyte right now. So the effective operating temperature is between negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit to positive 40 degrees Fahrenheit. 40 degrees is like well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. 40 degrees Celsius is well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is what most batteries today are working with. So they'll work down to negative 30 now pretty poorly, but they will discharge down to these temperatures. So they're going to work at low temperatures. Then if you change the electrolytes, you can get them to work in temperature ranges up to 60 degrees Celsius and negative 6 degrees Celsius. These are electrolytes they're basically developing for using lithium ion batteries in space exploration. There's probably no reason to do this in terrestrial vehicles. And these are experimental and not commercially available yet. But as you can see, you can make lithium ion batteries work better with better electrolytes. Now, this I think is just a discharge. The charging is still an issue. And you really can't charge these batteries at below 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. Now, what I believe happens in these batteries is that they can discharge the battery to turn on some kind of resistive heater or something to heat the own so you'll use the power of the battery pack to heat the battery pack up to a point where its internal temperature is greater than freezing, and then it can now accept a charge. And I think that was one of the problems in Chicago. So for example, if you were in Chicago and your battery was too low and it couldn't heat the battery sufficiently, then it wouldn't accept the charge. So if your battery was too low before you got to a charger, that would be a problem. And that's probably a design flaw in the car to allow it to get that low. Of course, if you parked it at an airport for a long time and you had phantom drain, which is the other thing I want to talk about, then that would be kind of a user error of leaving a vehicle in like an airport parking lot for like a couple of weeks where you went on vacation and knowing that it's going to drain down, or maybe the user didn't realize that cars drain down when they're parked. But now we know that. So it says here that LFP can't be charged at low temperatures. If you plan on using your battery at low temperatures, NMC is the best option. So NMC, again, is the chemistry that Aptera is using. So Aptera should do significantly better in low temperatures than this. And another reason that I think Aptera is going to do a lot better is there's this thing called phantom drain or vampire drain. And that's because EVs are essentially computers that move, and the computers are on all the time. They can go into a low power sleep mode, but there are things that drain the battery constantly as the battery stays there. Number one, the lithium ion batteries, they self-discharge. Even if they aren't being used, they self-discharge a little bit. But especially Teslas, they have a significant amount of phantom drain because they have a lot of techie features. So if you use Sentry mode really, really kills your battery life. If you look at this, Sentry mode battery drain can be as much as 7.2 kilowatt hours per day. In a 40 kilowatt battery pack like the Aptera Launch Edition has, you would discharge your entire battery within about 6 days. Within about 6 days, if you installed Tesla Sentry mode into Aptera, which would be quite problematic. So there's Sentry mode. You can disable cabin overheat. These are things to reduce phantom drain. You can disable data sharing because Tesla wants to talk and send data back to headquarters all the time, so you can shut that off. Cabin overheat protection will keep the vehicle awake to monitor and cool the interior, so you don't want it to do that. And then there's like these tracking apps that track your car, which is quite a useful feature. If you have multiple of those, they keep waking up the car to send its location. Also, if you use the Tesla app to check on your car, it wakes up your car, makes it use more battery. and then install pending updates because some software glitches make it make it drain battery. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi make it use batteries. Move key fobs away from the vehicle. Update the test labs because a lot of these will continuously wake the vehicle. Disable summon standby because obviously if it's always checking for someone summoning it, it's going to keep it awake. Remove widgets. Widgets will communicate with the vehicle and keep it awake. So get those widgets off the vehicle. Sometimes you need to like restart the vehicle, which means like rebooting the power cycling the computer so that it's fresh and doesn't have any processes in the background that's using it. And then reduce the polling interval. Those kinds of things. There's lots of things that drain the battery. And so if someone took their Tesla to the airport, left Sentry mode on, and left a bunch of these things on, you could come back to your car and it's like completely dead. And at that point, you're just, unless you're sitting right next to a charger, it's just not going to happen. And that's what evidently happened to a couple of people. Now the Sentry mode, luckily, when it gets down to 20%, it'll automatically shut off the Sentry mode. But then you have the other phantom drains that can slowly, let's say the Sentry mode dropped it down to 20%. These other phantom drains could drop the battery to 0. Now, the question is let's say that the battery is drained to 0 and the temperature is below freezing and there's no battery power left to heat the battery pack to accept the charge. I suspect, I'm not sure, someone if in the comments below, let me know if this is the case. I suspect that when you plug in an EV like that to a charger, it will use the electricity from the charger to initially kickstart the thermal management system and start heating up the battery. Start the coolant loop or the thermal regulation loop, maybe get a resistive heater. So I'm very interested in talking to Aptera's thermal management engineer and seeing how the thermal management is handled by Aptera, both at extremely high and extremely low temperatures. And I've emailed Aptera and asked them to put me in touch with an engineer and see if I can do that. If that happens, if that interview happens, obviously you guys will see that interview. But I think a couple of things are going to help Aptera in this situation. One, it's using NMC batteries. Two, the phantom drain, I suspect, on the Aptera is going to be extremely, extremely low. Because remember, Aptera is about being efficient and using its battery very, very efficiently. And that's one of the reasons they've mentioned, I've always asked them for Sentry mode. I think Sentry mode would be really cool on the Aptera. And I still hope they have it at some point. But they're not including it initially. Mainly, one of the reasons is because of the phantom drain problem. And remember, like Tesla self-driving uses like over 100 watts during use. They've gone with Comma AI, which uses far less watts than that. And so they're making these decisions based on efficiency. So I think the phantom drain on the Aptera is going to be much lower. And two, if you park the Aptera outside, it's always going to have a trickle charge from the solar panels. So as long as Aptera has set up its thermal management correctly, let's say that you park this thing at Chicago O'Hare Airport and it's outside. It's not there. Obviously, you're not going to get a ton of sun in the winter in Chicago, but you're getting some. Maybe you're getting 100, 200 watts of power. That may be enough to power the phantom drain of the Aptera. I expect we'll have very, very low phantom drain. And then it's going to keep the battery at a reasonable temperature, or try to keep the battery at a reasonable temperature using the power that it's getting from the solar panel. So number one, it's going to have less phantom drain. Number two, it's got kind of a charging built in on it all the time. So I think this problem will be much less in the Aptera. But as long as we're using lithium ion batteries, we are going to have to contend with lithium ion batteries' relatively poor low temperature performance. and its temperature window, which is like negative 20 C to 40 degrees Celsius. Now that's going to all get better once sodium ion batteries come online. Sodium ion batteries maintain more than 90% of the performance at negative 20 C, whereas lithium ion drops considerably in cooler temperatures. And why is that? It's because sodium ion batteries don't have a lot of the problems that lithium ion batteries have. It's the electrolytes used in sodium ion batteries already have very high conductivity, and the anode material on it is a hard carbon, not graphite, and it can absorb the sodium ions much faster and much more efficiently, and it can handle some pseudo capacity of the sodium ion on its surface, and the charge transfer kinetics are much better, and the sodium electrolyte interface works a lot better in these. So sodium ion batteries are going to be much better when they become available. And remember, the first sodium ion battery commercial vehicles are going to be sold in China this year. So if for people that live in cold weather environments, this is going to be a superior battery technology. You're going to give up some energy density, volumetric and gravimetric energy density, but you're going to gain much better low temperature performance, which I think for people that live in cold weather, that is going to be a good trade-off. If you want, there is a couple of weeks ago, I put out a video about sodium ion batteries talking about more of the chemistry and physics behind them. So if you want to check that out, please do. But I just wanted to go over that. So yes, this is true. Obviously not true that EVs are a problem, that they don't work in cold weather areas. They obviously work in cold weather areas. It's just that the user needs to understand how it works and plan accordingly. I mean, ideally, we would hope to be in a place where EVs are kind of foolproof and you don't really need to understand it well to use it. We're not at that place yet. But if you do understand how to use it, they do work in cold weather environments. But lithium ion chemistry is not ideal for cold environments. And we will need to look for better electrolytes to come online or sodium ion batteries to become more widespread. And again, sodium ion batteries are commercially available right now. So this is not some pie in the sky technology. It is happening. All right. I hope that was useful and interesting for you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.